Hi, coaches. If you're watching this mastermind and you tried to get on a different link, I apologize. We had a bit of an issue with the webcam hooked to the other link. So if that threw anyone off of watching live, I apologize. I hope either you come on the channel and it should show that we're live right now and you figure out where to find us, or you're able to watch the recording because it's going to be in your portal too. So for those who this is your first month joining our mastermind, I'm Coach Britt. And we come to these masterminds. These masterminds are for health coaches and aspiring health coaches who are part of our member community, the Buddha Belly Life membership, who are here to grow in their ambitions as coaches or in their wellness endeavors. Okay, because we need a place where we can talk business, where we can talk mindset, where we can get real about the successes, failures, obstacles, etc., that we're dealing with along this journey, because there's not a safe place to talk about that outside kind of this world. So unless you're hiring a business coach or something like that, and if you do, you hope that they understand your industry. But unless you have that, you kind of can get lost in the dark. And so here's where health coaches come to stay focused, to grow their businesses, to work with other coaches who are feeling very real human emotions and all of that. Okay. So you guys are allowed to, we welcome you to please pre-submit questions prior to joining these. And I've gone ahead and we had quite a few coaches submit feedback this month. So we've had excellent feedback about the membership. That's excellent. A few of you coaches shared some of your wins and your obstacles, and I'm going to go over some of those today. And then I'll add a few tidbits that I think might help you guys this month in moving forward. And anything additional that you want to share, that you want to ask about or anything, please see the closed group and we'll chat about that too. So this month, some wins, right? Here's some wins we've got. So one of our coaches, a few of our coaches actually said that just finally starting to be diligent with their training and with their training program and their business endeavors. This is a big win because for some people, starting is the hardest part. Not only the confidence to start and where to start and all that, but also to the craziness of life. I mean, shoot, I want to make sure my mic's okay today. It's been giving me some grief. We all just came out of the holidays, and that's crazy, especially if you're a parent or you have family in town or you've got all kinds of stuff going on. So sometimes just setting at that time, the new year is a really great opportunity to reset and kind of reframe and to re-goal and to refocus, right? So maybe you took that time to delve into, what you really want for the year and kind of set up a diligent schedule. So whether you're working on your business or whether you are working or on training and education, you're still going to follow the same pattern. You still want to make sure that you set a realistic amount of time aside each week for this investment and make it realistic so that you can feel like you achieve it majority of weeks. And if you supersede it, great, but keep it achievable and consistent, because you're always going to do better with consistency than you are with bouts of large amounts of work, right? Phases and stuff like that, right? Just kind of like with our kids, right? We can have a day where we're on it. I know I bring everything back to like kids and relationships, but I think it's just really, it's very real, so kind of like with our kids, we can be really diligent parent one day and, handle them with patience and be on the things they do and encouraging the things that they do right and healthily handling the things that they do that are not desirable, and be really engaged and be doing everything right that day. But that is hardly going to make a dent in who they become and how easy our life is and how their behaviors do or don't change, right? The consistency. We're better to do it consistently to a lesser degree of perfection than to be in and out of states of focus and presence and intention. Right? So remember that it's not about being perfect. It's about doing the best with what we can, making it doable and doing it consistently. Okay. So another win that was shared was when a couple of coaches actually talked about doing some groups. One of the coaches did a webinar. Another one did a live class and having a good amount of people that signed up for that. Super, super cool. That's a huge win. This is a great way to get clients. It's a great way to educate potential clients and community and to get known and to develop presence, because sometimes brand awareness, personal awareness is a big part of what you guys work for too. So the more you talk, the more you teach, the more you will be known, the more you'll train your audience and teach your audience why they need you, and the more confident you'll get in what you're doing, and the more serious people will take you because they're going to be used to the information you give, right? I talked about this recently. I did this on one of my Instagrams, how I was talking about credentials versus experience. And it's not to disparage people with credentials, right? We train a lot of people with credentials. We bring a lot of people with great credentials, by society standards into the podcast and into the things that we do. There's some amazing doctors and nurses and naturopaths and dietitians and all these things, right? With great credentials. Where this is an issue, even in just in coaching, is when people keep reaching for the credentials and not the application. So their real world experience ends up being very low or very limited, right? And we see that a lot with a lot of, medical professionals that we work with, or that, we've had experience with. And that is that there's this vast area of knowledge in a compartmentalized arena with limited understanding of, the functional body, or at least limited ability to do much with the functional body, right? And because of that, there's a big disconnect. And so the ability for us to, and for you guys to be great coaches, like a big part of you guys being really great coaches is practicing and applying. So whether or not you have the credentials, the society, society by society standards, learning, sharing, experiencing, doing within your scope of practice is where people will start to trust you. And don't get it confused that you need to take 100 classes over and over, all these different things all the time in order to be a better coach or to be taken seriously. Because honestly, you won't retain a lot of that information if you're not learning how to apply it. Those who apply will always do better. And by application alone, you learn so much. It's like apprenticeshipping, you guys. Apprenticeshipping as a coach is so important. So the knowledge is important, but only if you're using it. Otherwise, you won't retain up to 80, you're going to have an 80% average less retention when you're not applying it. And then whoa, that's a lot of time and money and awesome information that's kind of going in the tanker, right? So apply. So this teaching those classes. So congrats to all the coaches who have got out there and taught this month, who are bringing that stuff into their business, who are out there speaking to people. This is amazing. We're so proud of you. And that's a huge, huge win. So some of the obstacles that were shared this month. So this is a common one I see depending on the coach and depending on the time. And that is isolation with the process of studying or business, and the desire for more connection with other practicing coaches or studying coaches and all of that, right? And that I completely understand, you guys, that camaraderie, that community is really important, especially in this industry. So one thing I'll say over and over again is go to your closed group, and not just to instigate questions or conversations, but actually go in there and say, hey, introduce yourself. I'm so-and-so. You can give your age and your niche or kind of a little bit of your life experience. You don't have to give all that if you don't want either. You could just say, I'm so-and-so, I'm new, looking for people. But sometimes a better way to connect to people who are, and other students who are going to be more in alignment with you, is to help share more information about yourself. So hey, I'm at this phase of life, that matters, right? Because if you have a lot of open schedule, this is a retirement project for you, this is something you're doing, later in life, you have a lot of time, connecting with some of the coaches who are scrambling just to make a couple hours a week for this program because they're raising little ones, it may not be a great fit, right? As opposed to someone who's maybe more of a solo flyer who has some of that time that you do. And maybe you coffee chat, even, if you're not local, which chances are you might not be. Maybe you can do it on Zoom. I encourage you guys completely to connect together and to do that. So you'll want to do the Facebook group. Okay, so Helen says the Facebook group or the portal group. So the portal membership is amazing. It's set up amazing. Nobody's using that yet. So if you want to connect with people, still go to the Facebook group, and that's the Elite Coaches group, and connect and introduce yourself. Talk a little bit about, your mission, kind of where you're at, what you're looking for, and you can connect with some people, and I can help too with that too. So if I see you guys put that out there, I might nudge somebody or give you kind of some tidbits about a coach or something who I think is going to be such an awesome fit for you to powwow with. And like I said, make it fun. Like you guys can do coffee dates online, on Zoom, like meet some of your fellow coaches that are at a distance. Like how cool is that? So I encourage you to do that. And that's how we do, without being able to do necessarily live classes for everyone, because you guys are all over the world. You're in different time zones, different life situations and work situations and all that kind of stuff. So the group and connecting with those people, find the people who can connect where you are. I actually did that. I don't know if I've repeated this story multiple times, but when I did Tony Robbins Business Mastery years ago, it was a huge investment. Like I emphasize that because it was a really big deal to go to it, to be able to do it, to make a priority to do it. And then to the information and the stuff that we got there. I mean, it was 5 solid days of jam-packed information with a group of 2,500 people, which is huge as that is. That's a small group for Tony, because a lot of his other events he does are like 15,000 people. So 2,500 is a much smaller group. And we were there to talk about business, and they went over everything. They went over stuff like CPA accounting hacks and business and marketing strategies and blah, 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 business innovation, email versus snail mail versus, USPS, postal mail, blah, 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 all this stuff. And then they also had you work in groups and innovate with people. You got to meet people who are in all kinds of industries at all kinds of income levels. Like I was talking to millionaire, billionaire business runners, and we're shooting the stuff about business like I would with anybody else, which was really cool for me because it showed that like we're not so different. We're just at different places, but the game's still the same. Anyways, long story short. So this experience was so incredible. I came home defeated. I came home really, really jazzed actually, but defeated by the fact that like, who is going to get this? Like who else? I can only hang on to that magic for so long on my own, but I'm in my own little world. Like there's even most of my peers and my friends my age don't do business. If they did, they're not big Tony Robbins fans. Like I couldn't relate to anybody or share this with anybody. So what I did is there was a huge Facebook group for that business mastery session. I got in there and I was like, hey guys, I don't know about you. And there's a lot of people trying to sell stuff on there at the time. But I got on there and I was like, I don't know about you guys, but I would love to connect and do a free mastermind, like a few of us that just meet once a month or whoever wants to be a part of it. And I had like 25 people that were on the same page with me. They were like, what we just did was so rad. And, we're like, have this affection for each other now, having gone through all this together. And then we just leave, right? So there's like 25 people that started. And by the 6-month mark, so we'd meet once a month. But there was 4 of us who were consistent. So we got really tight. And there's some other people who would come in and out of it and then nobody would come, whatever. But there was 4 of us that would show up each month. And we got to be really good friends. These became some of the most supportive people. So out of 25 people that said they were going to do this, 4 of us, including myself, were the ones that actually withstood past a month or 2. And we connected. We're still connected. We don't meet every month anymore, but we're still connected. And these guys were so cool. There's 2 guys and 1 girl, and they're all over the world. Like 1 or 2 might be in the US, one's in Canada, etc. But it was so neat because what they ended up doing was we just got really close, and they were a safe space for me. And I could talk about things with business that I didn't have anywhere to talk about, and of myself and my life and my journey and my mindset, and get their feedback on actual strategies and all this stuff. And we could do that together, and I trusted them, and we became super close. And they were so supportive for me at a time in my life where like, there's just nobody else that could have been what they were to me. So sometimes you have to go find those people. So it's great to jump in the big pool, like the big pool of coaches, and then bait the few that are going to be really, because all you need is even just one or 2 people that are getting like value from you that you get from them, where you have a synergy together and you support each other. And then you can still have the whole, but that intimacy, that support is so cool. So you might just you have to kind of seek it a little bit though, if you want that, but I swear it's so worth it. So one other obstacle that was shared this month was how to connect more with people that are very anti-diet. So that's putting it simply, and that's a great question. I'm so glad we're touching on this, especially with all the protocol running that we're doing. So, and just here's the thing, like, I don't think any of us are pro diet, right? We're not. But when we talk about protocol, it may seem as if you were pushing a diet, right? So the best thing to do is firstly be really respectful of people, because usually when they're anti-diet, what they're showing you, I always say, like, get curious about people, because what people are generally showing you is insight into how they think and feel. So if they're speaking things like that, it means that they are very emotionally and mentally adverse to restriction. Maybe they've struggled with eating disorders, body dysmorphia, all kinds of stuff, which I think we all have. We can all relate to things like this, right? And so when the anti-diet kind of revolution came out, because you have the diet revolution, which was interesting. You have like so now we have like the anti-diet rebellion. And that's a huge push for psychologically healthy habits, um, for the most part, it's listening to your body, not getting all in your head, not making restrictions and things that are going to be mentally and emotionally unhealthy for you, and that lead to this and this and this, right? So there's a lot of great backing with that. Coming from the gut health arena, though, we understand that the anti-diet movement tends to encompass everything in moderation. There's no limits or specifics or anything on anything. And like we just talked about, I think I just talked about this in something I just did, but how the substances that people can be consuming can be just as much affecting the psychology of their behaviors as when it comes to things like binging, compulsivity, and stuff like that, because the substance, non-whole foods, processed foods were engineered to create that reaction in people. So as opposed to pushing, or what you don't ever want to do is you don't want to criticize or oppose something, because people, you will take that personally. Like, you will be criticizing them if you say, the anti-diet thing is, they got it wrong, there's blah, 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 blah. Instead, you can respect and support them, and give your information like this. Hey, just to clarify, we are not pro diet. I, as a coach, I'm not pro diets, but what I am pro is whole foods and healthy brain gut communication. And what we see neurological interference. We see microbiome changes that don't support health and inflammation. They don't support mental health or brain function. And they're relative to dysbiosis or to food reactions. So when we take someone through protocol, what we're doing is we're gaining data. We're pulling a lot of things out for a minute that we know that the body tends to have more adverse reactivity to. And the reason for doing this is so that we can read the body when we choose, or if we choose to reintegrate things. And it's a way of determining what is making us sick. Okay? That's not abusive. Diets are restrictive and abusive. The process of diets, or aspect of dieting, can be abusive and feel that way, right? But this is when we're talking holistic health like this, when we're talking about protocol training and stuff, and we're giving people the flexibility, we're taking the pressure off of it. So just emphasizing factoids, like, just because we're going to give you all of the components of the elimination protocol doesn't mean that there's a one-size-fits-all way to handle this. Everybody's going to go about this their own way, and your body's going to guide you. You can support the intuitive eating philosophies, okay? Because your body's going to guide you, and it's going to help show you, and there's no shame in the process, and there's no shame. And where you have strong cravings or binges or triggers or things, that's data. So, like, what are we going to read? So there's a grace and a what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of we're very comforting about it, about the process. Okay, so when we can talk about removal protocols, and then just giving straight factoids about certain foods, and always following it up with a little bit of the psychology. So, like, hey, refined sugars, we'd be doing a disservice to the world to not get into some of the ramifications of some of the things that people are consuming, and the effects on not just their gut health, but how it ends up affecting their brain and their propensity for all kinds of diseases, consequences that people are terrified of, right? So how would we be doing our job if we're trying to remain really emotionally oversensitive to everybody and not give information. So what I said is what you want to refrain from doing is targeting or belittling anybody, because honestly the foundation of um, some of this stuff is very positive. It's let's get away from the restrictive psychology. It's an absolute pushback against the typical diet culture, which you guys aren't in either of these. I mean, some of you are. I'm not going to say that you're not pro intuitive eating and things like that, but I guarantee if you're studying gut health, you're also understanding that there's things that intuitions of the body that are hard to read because we have so much miscommunication happening, so much inflammation. So it's really just about tending to the body's areas of sickness, disease, and symptomology. And that's why we pull those foods. And it's not a forever, and there's no right way, and there's no shame in the process. And that's where, so just educating people how we're different from diets, why we're anti-diet too, why we're on the same page here. Okay, so kind of giving them some of that education, putting that energy behind it is really great. So when you talk about protocol, it's a data process, data gathering process for identifying food intolerances and triggers. Because when you're starting to talk intolerances and allergies and stuff, people are okay with that, right? Well, they have a lot of these things that if they're not removing certain foods and things like that, they may never get to figure out, or they won't figure out till it's too late. And the damage from it is become so catastrophic, right? Like pulling gluten. Okay. One person may look at that and you're never going to, no one is ever going to think just like you. So one thing you got to be okay with is you can't be so stuck. You want to be respectful. You want to be aware, but you can't be so stuck trying to mold everything so that no one ever takes you the wrong way, because that is impossible to do. And so just make sure your heart's in the right place. Make sure you're being as sensitive as possible, as welcoming as possible, as non-judgmental as you possibly can, and just being an informer. Educate, guys, and empower. If you can follow up some of the education without being anti anybody or negative about anybody, then that's real education. It's helpful education. It's how can we help you, right? This thing can help you. This thing can help you. You know, a lot of people react to this negative thing. So by doing this, we can help you. All right. And then empower, right? So you're not just going, if you eat this or people that eat that are bad, right? Because that's what people hear a lot. You know, read this stuff and they're all failure, you know, but by saying, hey, this has a really big trigger on that. Hey, so you know that sometimes, like I said the other day, I did a thing on binge episodes, right? Binging isn't necessarily just a lack of willpower and a mental thing and an emotional thing. We also are consuming substances that want your brain to do this with combinations of fat, salt, and sugar that don't exist in nature. Okay. So imagine what this is doing to your brain. It's not fair to you that it's doing this to your brain. So by going through this process, pulling some of these things out as best as we can, substituting them with whole food versions of indulgent treats, and reconditioning the microbiome, we can actually help. We often see a lot of improvement in triggers and cravings and stuff like that. And then a person can go on and make conscious decisions about where, if these things fit in their life, right? And now you're talking intuition. Now you're talking about, you know, you're going to learn your body. The hard part is learning your body when it's in a state of dysfunction, understanding what it's saying to you, what things are making it say that, all that. Like it's hard to know it. So it really is an extra play on intuitive eating. It's a more in-depth look of helping support the body and reading the things that it's giving you. Okay, so those are just some of my advice for that, you guys. And again, we all articulate different. So some people are going to be really good with words and be able to, this is going to come kind of easy. Other people may not so much. So talk to your close group about it. We have a ton of pro intuitive eating people in our group, and I'm pro intuitive eating in the real sense of it. I think it can be a little confusing when people don't know, they haven't gotten their body to a state where they know how to even listen to it yet. And they're listening to the communication of refined sugar and things like that and bad gut bacteria. You know, that's not necessarily our intuition or our body. That's the things that are infecting our body and affecting our body, right? And so, but in the grand scheme, I mean, I think we're all very for that because that's the most holistic. So you can still give education, but if at worst, you know, worst case, ask your closed group, powwow with your coaches, and get some ideas and stuff from them, because that's, you know, just, hey, I ran into somebody that says this. What do you think about that? Blah, blah, blah. And there will be some good discussions and a lot of help in doing that. So, trying trying to think of anything else I'm going to share with you guys. If you didn't get the memo, we are pushing off the next interactive until March 6th to give us a little more time to enroll people. And then coming out of the holidays was just a lot, and everybody had a lot of January promos for additional pieces of their services and businesses. And so I think it'll be better to push it to March 6th. Yeah, so it's going to be really accessible on their mobile devices, and this will be really, really fun. So if you guys have any additional questions about that, go ahead and ask me. You can email me or you can ask in the group. I'll see if you guys don't have any more questions for today. That's what was on my list. I just want to encourage you. My last PSA that I'm going to leave for this month, that because I've talked to so many coaches and myself, right? Because I'm human too. But just on the processes of life, right? The processes of life for people that are enough as is, we're all like caregivers, we're coaches, we're caregivers in our home, but we're caregivers in our profession. And there's a lot that goes on in our lives. And the people that are caring for people have the most weight on their shoulders most of the time. And so give yourself some grace with your processes, with your goals. Sometimes the work we're doing in our homes and on our own health is the biggest piece of your training. It is the biggest thing. It is the now. Okay. And so give yourself grace for that. Sometimes it's pausing with your own health. I had an episode like that a couple months ago. For 2 weeks of absolute hell, but almost 2 months of struggling with my adrenals and my panic attacks and things that I haven't dealt with in over a decade. And I've been through some stuff, right? Since I got into gut health, I have not had anything like that. And I could not figure it out. But I was really confident throughout that process, as much as it sucked, that it was necessary for me. It was teaching me something, and it was training me for something. And now what do you know? I did a lot of things. I healthily sedated myself, essentially. I went and, I got my really good quality CBD. I completely pulled caffeine. I became really sensitive to any kind of stimulants at all. It was like my nervous system was absolutely stuck, my central nervous system, right? And so I did all these things at one time, and it did it. And it was a punch. I can't say it stopped right away, but it definitely catapulted me out of that crater pretty good, more than the other things I've been doing. And that's what it took. That's what I needed. But so now that I kind of get to this place where it's like, I've been out of that for a little bit, I am running into so many people that are dealing with very similar things. And coming to me asking for help and stuff like that. And it's kind of that moment when all that stuff comes full circle, and you're like, as excruciating as it was in the moment. And because I wasn't able to fix it quickly, like over the 2 months, it was not quick. It was up and down. And it was really hard. And it was discouraging because it'd been so long since I was tested with that. But once I finally, got somewhere and was alleviated a bit from that, now there's so much that makes sense. That time for me was really needed for a lot of things I'm being called for right now. And you guys are the same way. So remember, a lot of your life now is training you. It's not just your studies online. It's not just the information that you're taking in and the perfect supplements and the perfect ways to eat. There's a lot of stuff that life, your body, your environment, your experiences are training you in coaching, because you were a life coach first. Okay. So life is going to coach you the most, I promise. So I just want to encourage you guys in that. I'm so proud of you. Thank you so much for showing up to this month's mastermind. And please feel free to ask any additional questions in the closed group or give some feedback on this. But until February, you guys have fun. Go kill it. Go work on your businesses in a healthy way, while maintaining the integrity of the other aspects of your life. And I look forward to next month.